For the last 6 years, I've been running a home lab, which is not just a playground. This is production environment for my family. We run Nextcloud, which is file sharing platform. We use Jitsi for video calls. We use password managers. And most important, it's live on the internet. So the most important point that I need to protect is SSH. And password authentication is not enough. Even SSH keys can be stolen. So now today I will show you exact steps I use to protect this home lab and access that home lab over the internet using Yubikey. We will cover modern Yubikey, which can use AD25519 algorithm, and this key can be stored on the Yubikey itself and move around easily. And we will also cover enrollment errors, and you can use also a key on the Yubikey, which is not that easily to move around, but still it's very secure. On the older version of Yubikey is like that. So in the usual SSH key pair we have two parts. There is a public part here and there is a private part here. Private part is stored on your disk and must be stored securely. You can also encrypt it. And public part you can share, you can put on your servers and so on. In keys, in hardware keys, especially in Yubikey, there is a slightly different approach. So you have actually three parts. So public part as usual, then private key, private part is actually stored on the hardware only and cannot be extracted. And on disk it's stored metadata. It appears as private key, but it's actually a metadata. And in a modern Yubikey, this metadata can be stored also on the Yubikey and then can be imported when you move between computers. On the older Yubikey, only the private part is stored on the Yubikey, and then you have to copy and keep this metadata and copy to different computers if you move around. Once we know these basics, we can actually start creating a key on our Yubikey. So let's use SSH keygen for that. So we have to provide algorithm. Modern one is 25519SK, and then option resident to store metadata on Yubikey itself for convenience, and then verify required to actually allow PIN every time. So once we touch a Yubikey and ask enter PIN, we can save metadata of this Yubikey into usual location when the private key is stored. And that's it, that's our key. Sometimes you can see SSH key enrollment error using SSH keygen. This means that your Yubikey does not support this algorithm ED25519. But it's still possible to use Yubikey, but not with this algorithm. I will show you how. To store on the older Yubikey, you have to avoid option resident and use ECDSA SK for a type. And then you will be able to create the key in the same way as before. One thing to remember here, that your metadata, if you want to use this key, has to be now copied separately as a file and move around as a file. You cannot import that metadata from the Yubikey anymore. And now, to secure your server and use these keys, let's log in to my server. You see it asking me for PIN. And now I have to touch Yubikey and I'm in. I will just show you that you can make sure that password authentication is set to no in your SSHD config to only use keys, not passwords. And then in your authorized keys, only these keys, like this one, are used. These are usually prefixed with SK for security key. And that's it. If you put your key here, it's fully secured access over SSH using hardware keys.